Hello, it's Richard Bowser here from Property Investor News magazine at the Property Investor Show, and I'm now going to be talking to Nigel Hackett, who's a director of Funding Secure. So good afternoon, Nigel.
Good afternoon.
Nigel, Funding Secure, what is it that your company does in terms of what its services for investors, landlords, property developers?
We're one of the new breeds of peer-to-peer platforms.
Right.
And we've had to explain to people at the show, one of the things is unusual, that we're both a lender and we're also looking for investment from people.
Right.
So we've got both sides of the show.
Okay. So when you say a lender and you're an investor, can you just explain that in a little bit more detail? So if I came up to you as one of the attendees at the show and said, look, I've got £50,000 and I'm looking for a return, what are the opportunities that you might be able to
Well, the way the platform operates is that to start with, we source people who are looking to borrow from us. So this would be bridging finance primarily, short-term bridging finance. We do all the necessary securitization details, etc. for that. Once we've arranged that, we're then essentially looking for people to invest into it.
Right.
So we're acting as a middleman in some ways.
I see, yes.
So we have currently about 4,500 investors on side.
Yes.
And we've met a lot of people at the show today that are interested.
Yeah.
And they are able to select what investments they want to invest in. So they may go onto the platform and see 10 different investments, say, okay, I like this, I'll invest in this one, I won't this one, I will that one.
Right.
And they'll get a return based on the committed rates on those loans.
Right. And so is this an interest over a fixed period, or is this a shareholding, an equity type stake, or what?
It's an interest over a fixed period, usually around 6 months, although there are some for longer periods.
Yes.
And it's a fixed interest over that period.
Right. And when is that interest paid?
It's paid at the end of the loan.
Right.
There are opportunities through a secondary market for the investors to actually cash out early. They may not get as much interest if they do that, but it gives them a way out if they want to leave early.
So those monies are then passed over to a developer or someone converting a property or whatever it might be, and they've got a 6, 9, 12-month time frame to complete that project, and then move on to my other types of financing for longer term maybe?
That's the aim. With each of our borrowers, we insist upon an exit strategy. They have to have a way out of it because we're only short-term lending.
Right.
We don't want them to be tied into a loan with us for a much more extended period. So they would go towards buy-to-let financing or full development financing. So using us as a short-term solution to enable them to start a project.
Right. And the types of projects that you are effectively lending to developers on, what are typically those projects? Whereabouts in the UK are they?
Throughout the UK, including Northern Ireland and Scotland, which is a little unusual for lenders.
Yes.
They can range from a simple residential purchase with the aim for a buy-to-let, an auction purchase, or a bigger development or refurbishment, commercial, residential. Essentially, we'll look at anything if the asset is there, if the security is there, and it has a valuation.
Excellent. So in terms of people who are effectively borrowing through these short-term finance facilities that you're offering, and with the funding coming from individuals, what are the challenges that you are seeing from the borrowers in terms of the current marketplace?
There's a range of challenges we're seeing. Always we have a difficult balance because we need sufficient investors to fund the loans.
Yes.
If we get too many investors, they get fed up because they have nothing to invest in.
Right.
If we get too many borrowers, it will take longer to draw the funds down. From the borrower's standpoint, and also from the investor standpoint, the horrible B word, Brexit.
Yes, of course.
A lot of people are just waiting.
Yes.
They're not going ahead with anything just to see what will happen.
Yes.
And that's probably it's a challenge in both sides at the moment.
And do you see that more regionally, a London and South East phenomenon, or do you see that being a national phenomenon?
Because we lend and we have investors throughout, not just the UK, but we have investors globally.
Right.
So we see, I think the Southeast is probably a bigger impact.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure why, but
yes, I'd
the
agree.
North, and especially even in Northern Ireland, even though there are major issues there with Brexit,
Yes.
we're not seeing the hesitation
same,
there.
The same lack of confidence, perhaps.
Yeah, they're still moving ahead.
Right.
So,
And what sort of security do you take on behalf of your lenders when in effect you are then lending to the borrower, i.e. the developer?
we take first charge
Right.
security against
Yes.
almost every property.
Yes.
We do occasionally do a second charge, but that would be identified for the investors,
Right.
so they would go into it open eyes. But the majority is take a first charge. If it's a company that's borrowing, then we'd also take personal guarantees, debenture on the company,
Yes.
etc., so that we have full security.
Absolutely. And how long has the company been in existence?
The company was formed in 2012.
Right.
We've been trading actively since 2013.
Right, okay.
So one of the first peer-to-peer
Yes.
platforms, and I believe we're the first peer-to-peer platform to lend secured against property. Although there's a lot more that have added since.
Yes, indeed. They most certainly are. Well, look, Nigel, appreciate your time here today. How do people get in touch with Funding Secure?
Everything is through the website, fundingsecure.com. One of the aspects we try to emphasize here is go onto the website and register. Then you can see not just the available investments or the way we lend, but the whole of our history. We're transparent. Everything we've ever done is available on the website.
Okay, so people can do a fair bit of diligence on the company, on what the previous offerings have been,
Exactly.
and on what the current offerings
Yeah.
will be once they've registered.
Yeah.
And do they have to have some sort of criteria for registering?
No. Anyone can register. If they want to invest, then
Yes.
there's further
Indeed.
further checks, AML and
Yes.
ID and so on.
Yes.
But to register, it's no commitment. It's simply filling out a form with name and address.
And one final question: what's the minimum sort of monies that can people invest through the platform? Is there a minimum?
We generally keep the minimum very low. Most people are surprised they can invest from £25.
Really?
But the reason for keeping it low is that people come onto our platform, they're not totally convinced, they don't understand it,
Yes.
so they can invest £25, see how it's managed,
Indeed.
how it's handled,
Yes.
and then when they're comfortable, they can put larger amounts.
Well, that sounds like a test case that's not going to cause too much of a sleepless nights
We hope so.
for most people, I would guess.
Yes, yeah.
Nigel, thank you very much for your time here today.
Thank
It's
you.
Richard Bowser, Property Investor News at the Property Investor Show with Nigel Hackett from Funding Secure. Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you.